Hey, I'm Tyler. I'm an out health and life coach.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. On this week's episode, we are welcoming Tyler Hall, joining us all the way from Fort Worth, Texas. So Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. It is great to have you here. And for those of you all who are not familiar with Tyler, a little bit about who he is. So he is the founder of Radically Transformed Coaching. And as a certified health and life coach, he is on a mission to help chronic dieters ditch the diets so they can truly live a happy, healthy life. Tyler specializes in transformational coaching methods and utilizes those skills to help people overcome their limiting beliefs that may be holding them back from achieving true success. When he's not working on building his business, you can find Tyler working on his first book, drawing up the blueprints for his tiny house, and daydreaming about the many places he wishes to travel in the near future. I am totally with you on that one. Welcome. Great to have
Thank you.
I love what you're doing. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your coaching business origin story, and kind of specifically, how did you get started and how has it changed over time?
Yeah, I started coaching unofficially back in 2018. I was actually looking for the right career. It started out very selfishly. I was always on an adventure looking for the career that was going to make my heart sing. And my whole college journey was just a roller coaster of, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm all over the place. I was still in the closet for the beginning of my college journey. So, it was a lot of self-discovery in a very short period of time. And I graduated college still going, I have no idea what I want to do. And, I knew I had a passion for helping people, and I knew I had a passion for helping people get into alignment with themselves. And luckily, I ran into a health coach one day when I was working on a job, and she just said, I think you would be a fantastic coach. Have you ever thought about that? And at the time, I thought she was talking like a football coach or a basketball coach, something like that. And I was like, you don't know me at all. Yeah. And she goes, no, I'm talking like health or life coach or career coach, whatever, path you want to take. And I said, no, I have no idea what that is. And she introduced me to the career. She introduced me to the Health Coach Institute, which is where I got my training from. And 2 weeks into the program, I knew I had found the one thing that was going to light my heart up forever.
Yes, I love that. Isn't it so powerful when there's someone in your life that sees this potential in you and opens your eyes to a world, like a career that may have not otherwise been something that you would have immediately explored, right?
Yeah, it was so beautiful. And I look back, it was a divine moment. It was the universe coming into alignment and just opening up a door. And luckily I was listening, luckily I was listening and I could hear what she was saying.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. A divine moment and being open to it, right? Sometimes it's a gentle whisper until it gets louder and louder and louder, and something big might happen that you wouldn't have otherwise wanted to happen in order to redirect where you're going. So it's good that you're open and listening so early in your career, right?
Well, and it took forever too, because we had that conversation and then it took me months to actually pull the trigger and go after this coaching certification, because I was like, there's no way I can do this. This is, I don't have the skills to be a coach. It was all that self-doubt that many people face. And you're right, that voice just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And eventually I was like, okay, I need to do this.
Yes, yes. And it's so interesting. It's like, months feel long, right? Especially like when we're younger, where it's like, oh my gosh, a year from now, are you kidding? And I think of some folks that may be in their 60s or 70s and still kind of doubting about directions that they could have gone in, decades ago, right? So that's all perspective. You generously share your personal story with dieting and body shaming that you experience by others, and also like through your own self-talk. So if you feel comfortable, could you share with us more about how your own lived experiences were motivating factors to build the coaching practice that you have today?
It was a journey, that's for sure. I really struggled with body image issues from a very young age. I think I was around 5 or 6 when I first started to notice that my body was different. I was always the bigger kid on the playground, rounder, heavier. You start to notice those things really young. And then once you grow and you get into around 9 or 10, kids start to tease you, and it starts as these little things, or being picked last for the kickball games, little simple things like that. You notice you're slower than the other kids, but then the real kind of torment started when I was in middle school and high school, and you're in PE, you're in athletics, whatever you do, and you go to the locker room, and this is right around puberty when people are developing muscles, and I'm just fat and chunky. And the biggest thing that got me was, and it was always one of my biggest insecurities, was what I call my man boobs. And they're man boobs. And I would have kids in middle school and high school, they would poke at them, they would scoop them, physically grab them. They would say things like, the women's locker room is across the hall, or like, bro, you need to put on a bra before you run, things like that. And I was just devastated and so uncomfortable with my physical being, with my physical skin, that it took me forever to get over that. And that just kind of carried with me into, college and into, my young adult life, early 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you're thinking about those experiences, how do you take them into the work that you do with your clients? How do you help people recognize some of the self-talk that they carry with them is kind of like almost like deprogramming from how society has been so hostile, right?
I have a philosophy, or this belief, that we are more than just our physical beings. We are our inner beings. And so I work with people to really get connected with their heart space, get connected with that internal being, that soul, if you will, and recognizing that they are more than just their physical body. I think we live in a society that is so programmed to, with advertisements of like these beautiful men and women with perfect physiques. And we look at those and we look at ourselves and we go, oh my God, that doesn't look like me at all. Yeah. And so all of a sudden we're now feeling like we're lesser. We're not as good as those people. And that really, what's amazing is it trickles into every area of your life. It's how you do your job, how you show up in your relationships. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you're going through your life struggling with body image, struggling with all of these insecurities, I can almost guarantee you that you are insecure in your job, in your relationships, and all of these other facets of life. And so I work to help people get into alignment with their true beings and separate the physical body from the internal being.
I love that. I wrote down our inner being, and just like something that popped up for me was beauty myths, right? Just kind of like, you turn on the TV, if you still do that, or your computer, you read magazines or blogs or whatever, and it's everywhere. The work that you're doing is so powerful for anyone, and I'm just thinking of my own experiences of being trans, and just like how important that, like, just for what you're doing of helping people really get in alignment with who they are, who they know that they are, their truth, and kind of the external trappings of our bodies, right? Like then building a healthy relationship with the body that we have, right?
Yeah.
Which I just think is beautiful and really, really
Thank you.
healing. Something that our culture for sure can benefit from.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of just like shift a bit, like looking at what you do. I mean, it's transformation, it's transformational work. So when thinking about like transformational coaching, and this is tricky, right? So it's totally however you approach it, but how do you measure your success with individual clients that you're working with, or with some of the bigger programs that are more kind of like group coaching programs that you've developed? So just asking, because I know that we've got a lot of coaches who tune into this, and everybody kind of has a different measure of success. And so I'd love to hear yours.
Success is, for me, has always been very individualistic. I rate each client that I work with how connected they become with themselves at the end of the program. And I'll share, I was working with a client, she's 62, chronic dieter her entire life. And she came to me, and the first session, her goals were, I want to lose 15 pounds. It's all of these kind of surface level goals. And I knew already that there was something deeper within her that needed to be healed and needed to be fixed. And as we went through my coaching program, I discovered she was struggling a lot with self-love. And so at the end of the program, when she was able to finally look in the mirror and practice that self-love and say it out loud to herself that she loved herself, to me, that was a metric of success. To take her from a place where she couldn't even look at herself in the mirror to then wake up every morning and practice saying, I love you, I love you, I love you over and over in the mirror, and actually feeling that. Not just saying it, but feeling it within her. Her entire vibrational energy completely shifted at the end of the program. She feels vivacious. She feels energetic now. She feels younger than she was when she started the program. So those are little metrics that I look at with every individual client.
Oh man, I love that. It reminds me of Louise Hay and mirror work. I love her. So I mean that is really, it's almost like just, I do a lot of yoga and meditation, but kind of chanting, saying things over. And it's almost like saying the words, get your brain used to hearing them and then believing them. And just that power of positivity, which maybe for some listeners that may sound a little woo, but try it before you judge it. That's what I say.
Well, exactly. And, I'm all for positive thinking, but with transformational coaching, you have to change their belief systems. You have to go deeper. You have to, it's not enough just to talk and talk and talk and talk. You have to start to embody. You have to start to actually believe the words you're saying. And so that's where my transformational coaching skills come in, is that I'm able to, take them on a little journey and help them discover any limiting beliefs that they have that's holding them back from really feeling that. And once you crack that egg open, that's when the true magic happens.
Yeah. How do you create like a sense of safety for your clients so that they can get to whatever that root cause is that's blocking them from feeling that belief?
Yeah, we do. When I take them through any transformational work, I'm very intuitive. I have to feel, that energy and that connection. And it's all through either associating or disassociating, so when you get to that level of transformational work where you're having people step into their younger versions of themselves, if it's too traumatic, you want to disassociate them and just have them watch as like an observer versus stepping into that younger self, because it's really an emotional journey that they're going on when they're coming up with, all of these past wounds that haven't been healed. And so it really depends on that level of trust. It depends on how comfortable they are with stepping into that younger self, or, that old self. And, sometimes all it takes is just keeping a toe out, and just rooting them to the fact that they are still here in the present day. And we're just going, they keep a little toe out so they can root to the present moment. So a lot of different little tips and tricks, and it really is individual and dependent on the client that I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like you're giving us some tips right now. For those of us who may have tried dieting, who are tuning into the show right now, What's maybe one effective coaching tip you can share with us, fellow outbosses, our allies as well, that can help transform our relationships, not only with our bodies, but also with our mindset?
Yeah. For me, it's the first thing that I teach clients is how to shift from a diet mindset to an intuitive eating mindset. That is the biggest thing that we work on, is learning how to get into alignment with your body and learning how to trust what your body is craving and that relationship with food. I practice intuitive eating and just letting go of the restrictiveness that comes with dieting, the I can't have this, I can't do that, all of those can'ts that come with dieting. It's letting those go and opening yourself up to, I can have this in moderation. I can satisfy a craving without overindulging. And it's basically working a balancing act. And that is part of my program, is implementing the intuitive eating mindset. And then as we go through the program, tweaking and adjusting and just kind of refining what works for you versus what doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see that like shifting when you're working in groups or even one-on-one? How do you see that shifting in the ways, not only like relationships with food and body, but just like how folks are showing up in their lives?
There's an energetic shift. There comes a moment where, I'm always working with clients to have them visualize the future self, versus the past self, so they can always reflect back on the journey they've taken, so they can actually see the progress. They can see, okay, I'm now once again eating desserts, or, satisfying my sweet tooth that I haven't satisfied in years because of the diet industry. And it's like, okay, they're starting to be able to, take a step back and say, this is the path that I've been on. This is where I'm at now. What does that future self want? So it's almost like working with three different identities. It's the past self, the current self, and the future self. And then just having them always remind themselves of the path that they're on and where they are going. And just, again, doing some of that self-talk, some of that positive thinking. It's all just a little woo-woo, but it works.
No, it's so interesting. So I'm in the world of working with businesses around culture, and it's so fascinating. Like the way you're describing them, like, oh, maybe this is like intuitive culture building or something, but it's just, it's similar, identifying where you've been, naming maybe what's happening now, although sometimes that's scary for people to just acknowledge the present. But then like, the fun is imagining what could be possible, building something, right?
Exactly. And, you just, I forget the term you just said, intuitive.
Culture building. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's exactly what it is. It's practicing intuitive living. There is intuitive being. It's coaching is so powerful because it helps people get into natural alignment with their intuition. Yeah. Whether that's on a health standpoint, whether that's in life, or whether that's in career, it's all about getting into alignment with your intuition and knowing what it is that works for you instead of against you, and having clear ideas of where you want to go. So, these skills are transferable into all areas of coaching.
Yes. 100%. It's so interesting how you're challenging people to just imagine, a different future, and I can see how that could be scary too. It's almost like if you had, it's our experience of being human, right? Like we can work through, things that limit us and work towards what we want. But sometimes we're overwhelmed with defining what it is that we want. And so I could see the power of working with you around helping people, get those breadcrumbs of what they're suggesting they want in their life and really dialing in that vision. Do you notice that with your clients where they're afraid to imagine something different for themselves?
Yes. I see a lot of people are big vision, they have big visions. Sometimes those visions are so overwhelming that they don't even take a step
Yes.
And again, what makes coaching such a powerful tool to have in your life is that the coach helps you take those little steps. We break the vision down. We say, okay, this is what you want. This seems very overwhelming right now, but what does that look like in a 6-month period or a 90-day period? We break that big vision down into something that's finally bite-sized and manageable for the client. And, we're there to basically, like you said, have the breadcrumbs, give them the breadcrumbs so they can follow that path for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you've been doing this enough with your clients. So it's like, you've got that piece down. It's just really honing in you being present for who's in front of you what are their breadcrumbs, and we can help them get to that bigger goal, that bigger vision. So right on. So kind of like zooming out, when you're thinking about the business that you have now and the business that you're building, what's one thing that you wished you knew about coaching and building a coaching practice when you first got started that you now know?
It's so funny because it's literally what we just talked about is like, you have this big vision. I'm a dreamer. I have huge visions. I'm entering the market in the anti-diet space, but I want to shift into a whole broad category of like intuitive living and having like a health program, a life program, a career program, a relationship program. Like, that's my big goal, is to have different programs that umbrella the big life category. But you have to just start somewhere. You have to get used to learning how to work with one program, getting solidified, laying that strong foundation. And what I love about coaching and what I love about entrepreneurship is that you get to call the shots and you get to pivot. I say there's no failing in business. You're just always pivoting. You're getting feedback and then you're pivoting and you're finding out what works, what doesn't work, and you're moving forward. And again, I feel like a lot of people are so fearful to even start, because they're going to fail. You don't fail, you just pivot, and just having that reframe of, I'm not failing, I'm just getting feedback and I'm adjusting and I'm tweaking. It's really been kind of the core of me being able to get up every day and face the scary world of entrepreneurship.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like entrepreneurship is just kind of like this lesson of living, right? And many of us entrepreneurs get like that faster track of like, oh, wait, this is how I'm showing up in my business. And you kind of look in the mirror and it might be how you're showing up in life more broadly. And that kind of failure piece too, that's real feedback of like, you're testing something out and you change, and that's your pivot, test and change.
Yeah.
And I love the acronym FOCUS, like finish one course until successful. And it sounds like that's something that you're embracing with the program that you got started, and looking at ditching diets to have a healthier relationship with bodies, and you're doing very well, and you know where you're going to go, but you're pacing yourself too, because oh my gosh, if you did it all out of the gate, that's recipe for burnout.
It's so overwhelming, and it's right, a recipe for burnout. It exhausts me just thinking about that big picture. Like I have it, in my journal. I know exactly what I want, but I don't think about that. I think about, what is it that I have to do today to move me one step closer, and you just keep showing up day after day after day, and learning and growing and until the wheels really start to spin. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing it, that's the fun part. And, the more that you kind of do these types of interviews too, it helps you get more clear, about what it is that, returning back to your why, and also, being bold enough to envision like where you can go, in the next chapter. So the show is The Out Entrepreneur. So I want to kind of hone in on that piece and ask you, have you ever experienced a time either running your business, maybe more so working for someone else, where you were either underestimated, treated unfairly, or outright discriminated against? And I know this is a harder question, and the more you can be generous in sharing, I think that's going to help folks right now who are trying to negotiate how out they can be in their own businesses, or if they can be out at all. And so if you can share anything, how did you work around it, and what did you learn from it?
I grew up in Texas. I live in Texas now, and I grew up in a Catholic family. I always say we were kind of Catholic because we went to church on Saturdays and left right after communion. So, we weren't the good Catholics. But for me, I struggled so much with my body insecurities, with just being comfortable in my physical body, that it took me forever to even think about coming out. And when I came out, it was a moment of like, oh yes, I'm out and I'm open. And then I was still fearful because, again, it comes back to me, the body insecurity of like, okay, I'm now out and now I have to be in this gay community. Honestly, I felt the most rejection in the actual community because there's so many very attractive, fit, muscular gay men, and there's all the tribes that you fall into. And I came out and I was like, I don't know where I belong in this scheme of this gay world and this gay community, if you will. And so I never truly actually embraced my gayness. It was always something that I came out, and then I went to, the gay clubs in Chicago, and I was always feeling judged and ostracized. And I was like, okay, I don't want any part of that. So it was like I came out and then I kind of stepped back in. Yeah. And now for me, it's been, I came to the realization that for me, sexuality, who I love, is such a small part of my identity. Like there's so much more to me than just that part of me. So it plays a very small role in my life. I'm now fully out. I'm proud. I celebrate pride. I own who I am, but I don't let the gay label identify me or control me. It's just a little piece of me. And so I had to find that balance of, okay, how much of this is me, And when I realized it was a small piece of me, it just gave me so much more freedom to then focus on other things that actually mattered to me, which was building a business and, creating a life that I love and things like that. So, I'm so proud to be a gay man and to be running, a coaching business. And, I love working with gay clients and LGBTQ clients of the entire alphabet there. It's just a part of me, and I'm proud of that, and I love myself for that, but it doesn't define me, and it doesn't make me any less or any more than the person standing next to me.
Yes, that's such a powerful response. And I thank you for sharing that. I think there's probably many folks right now listening that can find a piece of your story that you just shared and really identify with it. And I know for myself, definitely, the LGBTQ communities, the alphabet of the many communities that we tend to be associated with, but also trying to make sense about, like, where do we fit within that and do we belong? And I think that's a struggle for a lot of us. And you're right. This is one aspect of many other adjectives that describe who we are. And it's important to embrace it, as well as also recognize that it's not the be all and end all that defines you. It's just a really valuable piece. And it shows up, it shows up in how we work, who we work with, like where we find community. You mentioned that you're out, you're proud. And so recognizing that you are a part of the rainbow family, what from your lived experiences of being a gay man allows you to stand out in your business? And I call these kind of rainbow superpowers. And for folks who have not checked out your website, I would encourage them to check it out, because I feel like you name a couple of values that you have that I think, definitely come from lived experiences of being LGBTQ.
Yeah, well, my number one value is authenticity. And I say I'm being 100% me 100% of the time, or I'm totally Tyler. That is kind of my catchphrase. And so for me, it was that having to accept my body for what it was, having to accept my sexuality for what it was, having to accept all of these pieces of my life as they were, that was the big transformation for me was, okay, this is who I am. This is my life circumstance. This is my life inventory, if you will. Becoming okay with that and knowing and owning that and being proud of that and knowing that's what makes you different. That is authenticity, and that is being true to who you are. So that's one of my values. Another big one for me is just being present, just being a presence and being present. We're all unique people. We all need to own our individuality. We have to show up and just be ourselves, because the world needs us. The world needs your creativity, your ideas, your beliefs, your color. I mean, it's be proud of who you are, because your life is so much more fulfilling when you just own it and when you just show up and be yourself. So be present, be authentic, and just live your life how you want to live it.
Yeah, I love that. And, I'm always surprised, when taking a risk, when stepping towards someone and kind of dropping down whatever walls and being a little bit vulnerable, there's a safety I find with most people, right? Where there's almost like a relief of like, wow, you've kind of shared more of your your real self, or your higher self, but I find that people, when I do that, they take a step closer to me by sharing a truth about who they are. So I definitely see that as a superpower for connection, right? And it's important as a coach.
Yeah. And I mean, right now it's so important that we are showing up as ourselves, and we are being open to having those hard conversations. I think we live in the age of social media where everything is picture perfect. And so we get this kind of, negative view of ourselves because we scroll through Instagram and it's all curated images and beautiful bodies and, people traveling to exotic locations and money and all of these kind of materialistic things. And it makes us feel bad about ourselves. But when you're able to step out and say, you know what? This is how I failed this week, or this is a struggle that I'm dealing with. You're allowing yourself to create a space for other people to see you and say, you know what, I'm struggling with that too. Or, this isn't going right with my life right now either. And that is how you build that connection and that community and those powerful conversations that are really going to change the world.
Yeah. I love it. I couldn't say it better. So thank you. Thank you. What does this moment for you, like when we think about the world that we're in right now, and you think about the folks that you're coaching and the things that we're up against as a society, what's now possible for folks in this audience, LGBT entrepreneurs, when thinking about building the businesses of our dreams? What can we dream about? Like when you're talking about that future version, how do we take advantage of what this moment presents to us?
I mean, honestly, we are in a moment where we are needed more than ever. I just feel like the best thing that we can do right now is to own 100% who we are, and then go out there and give the world your natural gifts and your natural talents, and be a voice of change. If you're thinking of getting into business, create something that truly matters to you, and allow your gifts and allow your true powers to come through, because not only is it inspiring, but it's also changing the world, and we're adding positivity into our world. Right now, and again, I don't want to get in too much with politics, but like, it is just such a negative place, and it's a negative space to be. And I mean, the best things that we can do right now is to just be ourselves, have our voices be heard, share your stories, share your vulnerabilities, create awesome things, and go out and be powerhouses, and be proud powerhouses, because We are a strong community. We are a strong group of people. And whatever happens, I know we will prevail. I know we will move on. We will continue to inspire. We will continue to fight, and we will continue to change.
Yes. I like underscoring, be ourselves, be heard, share our truths.
Yeah.
Create awesome things. Be proud and be powerful. I mean, I don't think we can say that enough. Maybe that's the mirror work we do after this.
I am proud and I am powerful. That's a great affirmation.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that. I think I needed that. Hopefully that was inspiring for our audience as well. So 2 more questions for you. The first is, what guidance do you have for those LGBTQ folks right now thinking about taking the entrepreneurial leap but haven't yet done it?
Honestly, connect with LGBT business owners, connect with that community, reach out for support, whether that be through mentorship, whether you actually hire a coach to help you out in that journey. Find support. That is the biggest thing, is to find people who are going to rally behind you, who are going to be there in your corner, who's going to push and stretch you, and just kind of be, like your cheerleaders. You can't do this alone. You cannot do business alone. You have to have a community. You have to have accountability partners, just a whole team of people to believe in you. Because the biggest thing with entrepreneurship is you're going to run into family members who are going to tell you, this is stupid. Your ideas are stupid. This is never going to work. And it's important to have those people in your life who's going to cheer you on and say, yes, it is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you need it. You need to feel it for yourself. And so working with coaches like you to kind of like find that inner, fire in your belly, whatever that looks like. And knowing that even if people don't understand the idea, you could be the next Google or the next Amazon. Those were ideas probably at the time, I'm sure, where people were like, you're doing what? People just, the founders, they kept going. So that's your job. And then also, I think one of our community superpowers collectively is that it is our community, right? We've got so many support systems across, at least in the United States, and I know folks tune in elsewhere, right? But lots of community, lots of folks who, if you do have a great idea and you're not sure how to do it, there's many of us that want to see you succeed, and we will do what we can to connect you with folks. So lean on those networks for sure. It's great. Network. Yes. Yes. So Tyler, this is a great conversation, and I thank you for your time. So that people know where to find you, we'll put all of the good stuff in the show notes. But if there's one place you would love for folks to visit right now, what would that be?
Instagram, because it leads you to every place else. I have a link tree there. So my Instagram is @TylerTransformed. And then right in my bio, you can find everything else about me through that link tree.
Right on. And we will for sure include the Instagram in your show notes. So thanks again. And for outbosses who've tuned in and those on your way to joining us, thank you so much. We are always so excited that you are giving us your attention for, 45 minutes or so every Tuesday. So if you're loving this conversation and you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and know that we'll be coming back to you next Tuesday. And for now, keep showing up like Tyler, be totally Tyler, as authentically as you want in work and life. And we'll touch base next week. Take care.